Ding 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 ding.
Fubble time.
Hi, my name is Teresa Tomey.
And I am Patrick Ziegler.
And we are
Fubble Entertainment.
And this is
Fubble time.
And this is a very special edition of Fubble time. I feel like
so
don't you think it's special?
I think it's so special. I'm so thrilled. I really am.
I know you are, because every time you've posted or sent an email, your "so" has had about 6 O's with it.
Oh, an exclamation point.
I'm so excited. I'm so thrilled.
I am. We have such a wonderful history with this wonderful man and the three. What did they used to call us? The triumvirate?
Triumvirate.
Triumvirate.
Yeah. No N. Why are you putting an N in there? Triumvirate.
Because I'm dyslexic. You know that. Triumvirate. Triumvirate.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Great. Hey, I'm going to rate to everybody. Hello.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about our guest before you bring him in. For 30 years, Joel Schoon-Tanis has been a working artist. Let me say that again, a working artist in Holland, Michigan. He has written and illustrated a handful of books, recently 40, The Gospels, At Psalm School, and Lulu and the Long Walk. He's painted murals around the world. We know this, including Kenya, Zambia, the Separation Wall in Palestine, and the most exotic locale of all, northern Wisconsin. He has painted nearly a gazillion paintings in his career.
A gazillion.
At least a gazillion. His work has been appreciated in churches, children's hospitals, schools, restaurants, businesses, and in many private collections. In 2016, one of his images was presented to the Pope. Crazy. In 2017, he joined international artists in Leipzig, Germany, to create art around themes of social justice in conjunction with the gathering for the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. He also made children's television, which we know well, and we will get to that. He's been in an alternative rock band and helped make a family with his very smarty pants wife, Kathy, PhD, and his enormously creative daughters, Harper and Beatrix. And with that, we welcome Joel Schoon-Tanis.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm having so much fun already.
Oh my God.
Yourself.
Can I ask you to do the theme song again? Because I like it so much.
Thank you. We worked hard on that.
Oh, so good.
Ding, ding,
you
ding, 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 ding. Yeah, we have friends that are gonna that are musicians. We had them on for Creative Couples Month, and they're writing the theme song. So
they did it. They played it for us at the end of their meeting with us, and they're going to record it for us. So we're gonna. So Teresa doesn't have to do it anymore, and I don't have to shake my head. Hey, we got a couple people here tuning in. Brad Savage. Brad is Jerry McCarty's brother.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Brad, nice.
And then
Kevin,
who's one of our regular viewers, and he was a guest 2 weeks ago, actually. He does stitchery, which was really fun.
Does
stitchery. Stitchery. He's a needlepoint artist and a cross-stitch artist, and he does fantastic and whimsical and serious and profound. It's really fascinating stuff.
And he won't sell any of it because he does the little classic TV stuff. Of course, I love that. Yeah. And Mickey Maxwell is here. He's a good friend who's an actor, and he was a guest. Hi, Mickey. And then Rebecca Durrell is here, and she was on one episode, maybe two, of Come On Over. She's in Surprise It's Your Birthday, and her kids are in it as well.
And she said, "Let Joel know the little guy with the flying balloons and the party dance moves is finishing first year at Adrian." He's a huge guy.
Wow.
Yes.
That's how long ago we did it.
It's been a while. So do you want to jump into some of our questions? Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. Joel, what a joy. This is just we could just go forever, but we always kind of ask, our first question is really like bitten by the bug. All of a sudden that just came to me. Theater people ask about, when did you first find that you got bitten by the bug? But for people that do all kinds of creativity, and right now we're focusing on your art, when were you first connected to your creativity, do you feel?
Whew. I honestly don't remember not being like when I was a kid, I asked for art supplies for birthdays, for Christmas. But let me tell you a couple early life stories that I know were these cementing things. The first one was something we called the Clay City. And when I was a kid, first grade, I think is when we started doing it. My brother and I got our hands on some of that modeling clay that doesn't dry out, that you can.
Yeah.
And we started making characters. And instead of having action figures, we would use these characters. And they're awesome because if you change the kind of scenario you wanted to play with, you could just make new characters. And slowly that expanded and filled our entire basement. And all the kids in the neighborhood came and participated. And we had this crazy universe. And that was a huge part of my childhood. And when we sort of outgrew the action figure stage, we started animating the clay. It just kept going. So that was one piece. I can just remember always wanting to make stuff. And that was a thing that I did as a kid. But then this moment where I first started, I think, really thinking about art as being a painter was when I was in 6th grade. My dad had the opportunity to go to the Netherlands, or as we call it in Holland, Michigan, the motherland.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the artist MC Escher, but he does all that stuff that interlocks are called tessellations, or these really optical illusion sort of drawings. You've seen them, whether you know or not. And so my dad was a mathematician. He was a math professor. And a lot of how Escher achieved his results was through mathematics, actually. And all of his art, his notes, his sort of stencils were in these archives at a museum in The Hague, in Den Haag. And my dad got access to those as a professor for several weeks, and he brought me along. And so my dad was in these back vaults taking photographs of MC Escher's private notes and things while I was hanging out. And so I spent several weeks in this art museum, and I would just wander the halls. And I had books along, and I would sit in a different gallery each day, and I'd read my book, and I'd look at the art. And I don't have a great long-term memory, but that experience is burned into my brain as this moment of this is amazing. Look what people can do with paint. And
were you painting at that point? Were you doing?
I was always doodling and always drawing. I was always a kid that drew, but I just feel like that was this anchoring moment early in my life.
We have a couple of.
This is a new story.
I know. I don't think. Mary Jane was
heard that story.
Mary Jane was our guest last week. Hold on one second. And Raven Stone is a huge TikTok follower, or has a TikTok following. Nice. And he's been on. And then Fred Stella's here.
Yes.
Does Patrick know that his new spiritual home to be has an awesome Tanis original hanging in its fellowship room?
Oh, no.
At Unity Douglas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's cool. Wow.
Well, so that's so interesting that we've never heard that story, or that neither one of us remembers that story for as much time, creative time, as we've spent with each other. So then, did you take art classes in high school? Was art offered to you in high school? Did you?
It was, and you'll find this one interesting, and our creatives out there will get ready to be angry. So I took art, and I went through it so fast that by the time I was a senior, there wasn't anything more for me to take. And they made my art teacher was like, well, you can do an independent study. And I remember going to meet with my counselor and telling him this. And I was a good student. So I was an all-A student. And he was like, why would you do that? And we had that conversation. I mean, he was like, it was one of those conversations of, don't you want to be a doctor or a lawyer? And it's like, no, this is what I love. And it was like this really weird, it was another moment in my life. Again, I remember this. It's like, wow, this is really important to me. But I had this great old crusty art teacher in high school, Joe Deneef, and he was like super wrinkly and he smoked all day long. But he obviously wasn't allowed to smoke, but he'd get us going on something. And then he'd go to the art supply room and smoke, and then he'd come back. And he was just like, I don't know how many packs he was smoking a day. But it was a lot. God rest his soul.
God love the 70s.
But he was fantastic, and he was a retired. He had been an ad art director, like in New York City for a bunch of years. Like he had been like in the mix doing creative things, and then at some point decided he just wanted to smoke and shape young minds, I guess. But he was a great influence, and then I went on to college and studied art, and at Hope College in Holland. And my main professor was a guy named Del Michael, and that was sort of a continuation of my life. My dad was a Hope College professor, and when I was a kid, I was in the play group with Del's son, Michael, and last name's Michael, Jim, who now goes by James. Here's an interesting one for all you LA people. James Michael, he goes by. We called him Jim. Wrote a lot of songs for a whole bunch of hard rock groups.
Oh wow!
And was in a band called 6 a.m. with Nikki Sixx from what is
one of those hair bands, right?
Hair bands. And anyway, he's been a very successful.
Guns N' Roses or one of those, yeah.
Yeah.
You lost me when you started talking about rock bands.
Anyway.
Hey, throw up Raven Stone's comment real quick, because that's funny. Crusty art teachers make new generations of artists.
True. No, it's true. Anyway, so Del knew me since I was a little kid and really mentored me, and so that got me going. Del was one of those guys that he was the right personality mentor for me. I do better with positive feedback than negative feedback, and
really,
it's true. You guys know me. And Del is like Santa. He was like Santa Claus. He looked like Santa Claus. And he was the guy that would come and show you what you were doing right in your painting instead of what you're doing wrong, and let you figure out what you were doing wrong.
So when you did go to my cousin Lori's here, and her nephew Andrew has a couple of your pieces, I think.
Oh yeah, they've been great supporters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you do have a gazillion paintings, as the bio says, that are dotted all along the world. It's nice. And
I featured this last week, but I've got that right there. That Teresa commissioned for my birthday.
So great.
The only piece of artwork I've ever commissioned. You know, it's interesting. Before you jump forward, Patrick, I do want to say Mary Jane, who was with us last week, was an art teacher too, and she talked about how difficult it was, that there just isn't enough. You can't do just one class of art, one year of art, and give somebody a comprehensive experience. So she worked in the school that she was in to get graphic arts and ceramics, like to give kids this whole, profound experience in art. I'm not sure what part of Mickey Maxwell likes something. I think maybe it's Patrick's artwork.
I think my artwork.
Yeah. So Mickey, you would love it. It's a lovely piece. Let's
got Lucy and Jeannie in it.
Yeah.
You want to ask that next question?
What is the question? I have a silver alert on my phone, and all my questions are on the phone. And sadly, there's an endangered elderly person, so I got to figure out how to get rid of my emergency alert.
Oh, that's in Florida. Is it there?
Laugh.
I know it's in California. This is it. Well, this does lead into yours. Yeah, I found it. Do you want to ask?
Yeah, because it's very much with my painting, and we'll show some of your artwork. But you have a particular style, which is very, childlike. I don't know if it's childlike, but child influence.
Childlike is better than childish. It's childlike.
Yes. And we have another comment here. Oh no, that's Fred Stella. Oh, I was looking for this one.
Marnie, nice.
Oh, big, come on over. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But let's show a couple of your pieces, paintings.
Yeah, whimsical, childlike, child-friendly.
Yeah, there we go. So the fancy art word for this is I juxtapose kid-like imagery with realistic imagery. And here's a tip for all your viewers out there. If you ever want to sound smart at an art event, use the word juxtapose.
Nice.
Very interesting how the artist juxtaposes the thingy there with a what's it over there, and people will think you know what you're talking about.
That's great.
With a pipe and a turtleneck, right?
Yeah. But juxtapose essentially is like you compare and contrast, or you take two things that don't seem like they should go together, and you put them together. And so I take kid-like drawings as like the bath there and the bubbles, and I put a more realistic image in it and try and tap into kid-like whimsy. Or here you can see the mix of realistic animals with the more kid-like animals and children and whatnot.
And then I love this one, but this, oh, it does. The giraffe has the childlike.
This is called the bush, because all the animals in Africa live in the bush. So the other thing I like is I like to write text on paintings often in sort of childlike stream of consciousness, right? Because kids just say what comes in their brains. You know, a zebra is a horse in a striped suit, right? It's just an observation. They just say stuff, and it's super honest, right? They're like the things that come off as sort of funny. It's just like they're just saying the honest thing that pops into their head, and I try and tap into that.
So how did you find that style, though? You didn't start out and go, I'm going to juxtapose
That's right.
images. Or maybe you did. Maybe you did.
No. So go back to my senior year in college, and I was taking a watercolor class. And all of my watercolor paintings were super boring. Like, they were not good. And set that to the side, and now enter a friend of mine who is student teaching. And she's like, hey, will you come and do an art activity with the classroom I'm student teaching in? I'm like, yeah, right on. And so I went and I did an activity, I don't know what, but there was a girl in her class, Sarah was her name, and Sarah was so excited that day that then my friend came back to me and said, Sarah is like just bursting at the seams. Can she come and do some art with you? And so my friend brought this girl to the art studio at Hope, and at the time I was painting sort of fairly abstract paintings, and same sort of colors, but just sort of lots of swirls and things. And but anyway, I had Sarah paint whatever she wanted to on this giant canvas, knowing that a little kid was never going to fill this giant canvas. So she painted these little sailboats. And then when she left, I painted into it and sort of abstracted it. And it was super interesting to me. And I had sort of a light bulb go off that the kid drawings in the midst of this more sophisticated painting was interesting. And so I took out my stack of boring watercolor painting, and I got a pencil and I literally just drew the kid version of whatever it was I had painted over the top of the painting. And it was like light bulb. It's like, this is interesting.
Nice.
And you've spent the next 30 years doing it.
Yeah, in a while, like it was this idea then that I will detour every now and then and try something else, but I always come back to the same thing.
Look and style.
It's the well that just keeps giving. And I think my approach to it changes. Like you could see in that bush painting, that's a fairly recent one. it's gotten maybe even a little more stylized, and the colors have gotten more bold. But
are you able to bring it back up?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
I wish I should have sent you. So all my early paintings were watercolors, and they were really washed out compared to this. And yeah, it's just gotten more and more stylized, I guess.
So do you've got, Patrick, can you get rid of his website and bring up just a few more? I'm telling him what to do. Look at something.
No, but I want people to know, and I'm going to put it in the link too. This is where you can go to see more of Joel's artwork, and if you want to commission a piece, you could do it there too, right, Joel?
It's true.
Thanks for hanging with us, Raven. Raven is popping off, he said, but can't wait to check out the website later. Beautiful art.
That's really nice.
What do you want me? You want me to take this out?
I want to, yeah, just take down the thing so you can bring up a few more of the images, because we have some more images. I know there's one that you in particular want to really ask about.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we get some of these additional.
So I love this piece. So tell me about this, Mr. Tanis.
So this actually, I'm so glad you put this one up, partly because this shows a little bit of a transition in my work in the last few years, where you can still see the kid whimsy.
Yeah.
Like the kid whimsy and the realism are starting to blend together a little bit.
Yes. 100%.
This is a painting I got commissioned to do for a guy that runs a youth theater in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
But I got to know him when he would come out and do Hope College Summer Repertory Theater.
Cool.
Jimmy Saba. Do you know Jimmy Saba? James Saba?
Oh boy, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does sound familiar.
He was an extra on the show that we, I think, at one point. I wouldn't be sure. I'm pretty sure. I should double check. But anyway, he was friends with all the people we drew from in the project we did together. He knew them all. Great.
Oh my gosh.
Great guy. Look up James Saba. And
yeah.
I wish I could tell you what his theater was, because it's a fantastic theater out in San Diego.
San Diego?
Yeah.
I love it because it's for me, it's very Finding Neverland. It's just got this energy of that. And, especially. Go ahead.
So he was inspired. There's a painting by some German painter whose name eludes me called The Wanderer that you've also probably seen. And the character in the foreground is the character from that painting.
Oh, okay. It's
this explorer standing on the edge of a rock, looking out into this misty nature distance that's like don't really know what's out there, but it's like they're going to go there. And he liked the idea of using that same thing as almost as a metaphor for theater, right? When the stage opens, you don't know where you're going to wander to, where you're going to be transported. And so in all the little things here, like you see Charlotte's Web and any Frog and Toad, all the little things are things from Holland, Michigan that had to do with, he helped develop the children's part of the Hope.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Theater
cool.
back in the day. And so those are all sort of shout outs to different shows that he helps them do.
It's very interesting. Cool. We've got lots of people showing up.
Kathy
Leschner. Hey, Joel. After 30 years, how did I not know these stories of your artistic roots?
Right. So Kathy owns Uptown Gallery in Holland, Michigan, and frames all my artwork and has shown my artwork over the years. And this, just to be clear, there are nights when I was sharing stories of our neighbors across the street. We just moved into a new neighborhood, and they crossed the vaccination line, and we had crossed the vaccination line like we're having drinks. And so we actually got together and did this sort of get to know you stuff. We knew we were going to like each other, and we were telling stories, and I was telling stories from a trip that I took to Africa, because I've been to Africa a bunch of times. And I started telling the story, and my wife, Kathy, looks at me. It's like, I've never ever heard. And it wasn't an insignificant story. It was, it was actually, I took a flight. I was at a party with a bunch of sort of expats from all different places, and met a pilot who had just finished piloting Gary Larson, who drew the far.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
He had this little phase. If you look at his old cartoons when he was doing a bunch of Africa stuff, he went to Africa, and this guy had flown Gary Larson all over Africa. And while we're at the party, he's like, "Hey, I'm flying to the coast a couple days. You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So, and this led to a whole series of stories of choices I've made on travel in developing countries, because I've traveled a lot, with that all are maybe not great safety places. She's like, "What do you know about them?" It's like, "Well, we were at the same party together."
Sounds like a Fred Stella move, yeah.
Right. So, I've done that kind of stuff all over the world.
I love what Fred Stella said. So glad you could join us tonight.
Oh,
so sweet. So
I've had a marriage on Fred for so many years. So
I know. So let's talk a little bit about that and your man crush. But
and Mickey offers real quick before we go back to that. I love the spotlights at the top as a theatrical actory person. I can see how we all appreciate that piece a lot. That's really
and also before we do jump into our show, I want to show a couple other pieces, because your mural is in here.
Yeah, talk about where that is.
So the animals in the middle are my mural. This is a piece called "Balancing the Peaceful Kingdom," and this would be a biblical piece from the Old Testament. So that covers 3 of the world religions. In the book of Isaiah, that talks about the wolf will live with the lamb, the lion will lie down with the calf, and these predators will hang out with prey, and they'll not eat each other, right? It'll be good. It's sort of this image of peace. Well, several times, and I'll be doing it again once COVID's over, I have helped lead art camps in Bethlehem, as in "Oh, little town of Bethlehem."
That one from the song?
From the song?
Yeah, from the song. In Palestine. And that's on a wall that looks like a maximum security prison that surrounds Palestine that the Israelis built. Now, I don't want to get crazy political here, but let's just all agree that it's not an ideal situation, right? You can build a case for why they built the wall. There were suicide bombings, that sort of thing. But I will personally build a stronger case for why it's not a good idea to cage a bunch of people in. That's not going to end well for anyone.
Right.
So the street artist Banksy got things rolling. Banksy showed up and started painting images on that separation wall to call attention to it. And now the separation wall has turned into this amazing art experience. And in fact, people do tours of the wall. And I should have sent you this, because you'll appreciate this story I'm going to tell you in a second. But I painted that a few years ago with the idea that, you can see the animals trying to get over the wall, but it's also, it's like, can't we try things differently is what I want people to think about. Let's do things differently. Can't we work together? Can we try to do the impossible? You can take different tacks on it. That piece, though, I painted it in 2016, and then in 2017, Banksy built a hotel about half a block away called the Waldorf Hotel. I just got lucky, like the spot that we chose. I had my Palestinian friends help me secure a spot. The proper etiquette, if you really want to have a piece there, is to ask the business owners or homes around it. Not everyone does that, but I did, and there was a gas station across the street they were happy to have me paint this painting, and they helped me out. Anyway, Banksy builds this hotel, which is internationally known, and that section of wall becomes this major tourist spot.
Oh my gosh.
So that painting ended up in a article for National Geographic Travel on the paintings in the wall. And go on Netflix, if it's still on, and watch Conan O'Brien's travel series.
Oh, really?
Conan O'Brien went to a bunch of places, and he goes to the Holy Land, and he does a bit in Bethlehem where he's literally standing in front of my painting for like 10 minutes. So when it first aired, like on whatever network Conan is on,
TNT, I think.
TBS. The next day I woke up to all these messages from friends who were Conan fans. It's like, did you know your art was on Conan O'Brien last night? It's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, so
wow.
That painting's been really cool. And it's also been a great, in recent years, I've gotten I hate to use this word in some ways, but I've gotten more activist with my artwork.
Yeah.
Well, I almost, in the teaser to write about you, I was like, how do I write? I almost wrote activist. And then I shied away from it, but
I wish I had a better word for it, but it's sort of what's happened. I've started
your dinosaur was very interesting.
Yes, right, that kind of thing. Or after the horrible shooting in Florida a couple years ago, I went to the March for Our Lives event in East Lansing. There are all these March for Our Lives events around the country, and I reached out to the organizer there, and I painted a huge painting of AR-50, whatever the automatic rifle.
Yeah, whatever it is.
And I had a little mark on it for each kid that had been murdered that day. And I brought a kid along from my neighborhood who was a teenager who was just really moved by all these things. And I got up on, in front of the Capitol steps with my painting, and I said, "Hey, I'm an artist. I've painted this painting, but you don't need to hear. People don't need to keep hearing from old white guys." And so I turned it over to my friend Ava Fuentes, and Ava basically did this slam poetry thing about how 1 leads to 2 leads to 4 leads to like this multiplication thing.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane. It was so good. And then she took a paintbrush and painted her name over top of the assault rifle. And then we just said, "Hey, let's do this together." And I walked it down to the bottom of the steps, and for the whole rally, people would come and paint their names.
Oh my gosh.
And at the end, it was this beautiful abstract sea of graffiti of these names, and the gun was obliterated. And it was super cool. The future governor of our state of Michigan signed it. She was there while she was still campaigning at that time. There were all these. It was really a cool experience.
That's amazing.
Not the least of which is the best part was Ava's sort of slam poetry. And, but anyway,
wow.
More and more, it's like you don't make any money. You don't make any money doing those things, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just got to make art. Well,
and you are a very successful artist. Which is nice. I mean, that certainly helps to be able to do those other things, I
haven't starved. I mean, I've had better years than others, but
sure. But working artist is not a word you hear enough.
Right. Right.
My grandmother-in-law, again, I can't help but keep coming back to these things. The original Grandma Zippy, used to introduce me as a working artist, and she was a huge supporter of the arts, of theater and opera and the symphony. She was one of those ladies who wrote the checks to all those organizations. And she was so pumped when I joined the family because it's my working artist, husband of my granddaughter. And
amazing. Before we go into the thing that we worked on together, just tell us quick about this. That's nothing small.
Yeah. So that's Pope Francis getting a piece of my work. So it's being presented by an organization called the World Communion of Reformed Churches. So it's a Protestant group that was meeting with their Catholic counterparts at the Vatican, where sort of like the counterparts for like immigration discussions and climate change and all these sort of justice things were meeting, just like, what's our common ground? It was this couple days of meetings, and the organization had hired me to do a painting on their behalf. And
wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's pretty neat. I'm not Catholic, but I almost became Catholic after that
because it was such a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. I'm wearing, which you can't really tell, but I've got my Team Fun shirt on.
Yes.
And we did a little TV show together.
I heard about that.
And this happened when we did it.
Look at that.
Look at us.
I should have grabbed it. Mine are around the corner here in my studio, but
Are they?
Yeah.
I remember this day. Do you guys remember this day? How they got delivered? Because none of us were there. That was the first year that Teresa and I won. You had won 2 before, I think. Yeah. And that was when we were, it was my niece's wedding. So we didn't go, and then we won, and they came UPS. And so we brought the boxes into your studio. Do you remember that?
I do now.
I feel like we chased the UPS guy down. Like we chased him down. Yeah.
You guys look the same in that picture. My hair is significantly longer. Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Mine is too when you get close.
Yeah.
But so we did come on over, and we did that for I don't know how many. We started in 2006, right? We did it for 4 or 5 years, and it was such a magical time. It was such a special time, and I think about the things that came together. And Bob, who did the set from Sesame Street. And Lisa Buckley, who did the puppets, created Alf and was a puppeteer. But I want to know a little bit, because I was living in Los Angeles when you approached Teresa with the idea, and how it infused your artwork and how the concept came about. And I'll never forget Teresa going to me, "Hey, would you look at this show? You know, I might be doing this children's TV show." And I was like, "Well, that's good, you and your little cute TV show." And I remember reading the script, and I was like, "This is really freaking good." And then we met at the Cottage Bar.
Oh yeah,
3 of us, and that's when you asked me to be your agent, your producer, your.
Well, before we jump in, though, I do want to share some of these comments. Terry Zinn says, "Such a good show. My granddaughter was obsessed with it. Sure wished it had lasted longer. So do we. So do we." And then Rebecca importantly says, "Joel, you look great with a little gray. Age becomes you." So, and then Denise Gunn does have a comment here. We'll get back to that, Denise. Could you talk about Daca? So we'll come back to that. I'm not sure. So talk about coming over. What was the inspiration for that? And hearing your story, I'm always like, was that little Sarah at all inspiration for any of that?
Maybe, so, I think about such a driving force in my visual artwork has always been kids and creativity. And I was doing a mural at the Grand Rapids Children's Museum that, Teresa, you were the director of. Yep. And I had started to get this sort of general idea of like, how can I reach more people with these thoughts about creativity? And honestly, my first thoughts were art. But then being around all the Children's Museum people, it was like, it expanded to creativity / creative play, right? Just like, what are the things that form us as kids and these creative things? Excuse me. And I don't even know how well formed my thoughts were when I sat down at lunch with a few of you from the museum and like, "Hey, let's do a TV show." No idea. I just that you had a theater background, Teresa, and there just seemed to be people around that we might be able to pull this thing off. if we had more time, we could talk about the Enneagram, which I know is very popular these days, but I've learned that I'm an Enneagram 7.
You and Mark Lord. I
Yeah.
say that all the time. I'd never known that. But Mark
I'm
reminds me.
the enthusiast. I've got a new idea every day. And
the next sparkly thing in front of you.
Yeah.
I'm a 3.
Oh yeah, get things done. So anyway, I get ideas every day. I get a new idea, and my new idea that day was, let's do a TV show. And it just happened that the right people were at the table, and then one thing led to another, and that's, I think, Patrick, where you came in, where Teresa connected you into the whole mix, and you knew a little bit about television, and then.
Right.
And then it really became this web of creatives. And, you know, the part that was difficult for me as a solo visual artist making the transition was, you know, learning what it means to collaborate with that many people, right? You guys are nice. So, and everyone we worked with largely were really kind people.
Yeah.
And so we made it work. We figured out what the gaps were, right? So that some of that was hard, but the good part was it got super exciting. It's like connecting the dots, right? Which is its own form of creativity. It's like, how do we get a set made? Well, we know these people who can build it here, but heck, why don't we call this person from Sesame Street? I mean, it's like, what? But it started becoming this thing, and it starts to snowball. It's like, why not?
It did. It really did. Yeah.
I remember we were actually in the midst of production, I think, when I went away to Africa for a chunk of time. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had this scheduled adventure to Africa, and I came back. And you're like, hey, Joel, guess who we have scheduled for the show? It's like, and you had asked Jonathan Magnum, Fred Willard. There's this list of people like, what? And it partly was like we all just sort of got this feeling of, why not?
Yeah.
And then we started meeting folks, and you start learning, it's like creative people want to create, and I'm sure there are creatives out there that their egos are too big to do a regional kids TV show.
Sure.
And we maybe even reached out to some of those along the way. I don't know. I don't remember.
You know what I think really was a great thing about what we did is that everybody was so invested in it and were so kind. And I think that was one of the things that we, as producers, meaning all three of us, we set that when we would have those meetings, and we'd say, we got to put this all in perspective. And I remember when Vicki Lewis came for the first time and did her number, and everybody applauded, and she was like, what the?
Oh yeah.
And Jabara was like, just like LA, right, Vicki?
Right.
Right. And then it became like, and I remember Fred Willard talking on his cell phone, standing in Lake Michigan at Meg Miller Willett's house, talking to his wife, and just like, you should be here. This place is. It became such a great energy that I think that showed up on, and we've been told that showed up on camera, that showed up in the episodes.
I remember being at a friend's house, and we're watching some sporting event, must have been important, or something. I don't remember what was on TV, but I remember Ruth Buzzy sort of curled up on the couch, just chilling out. It's like, Ruth Buzzy. Right.
It was a surreal and wonderful time. It was hard. It was a lot of hard work. And I mean, I'm certainly grateful. I think we all are grateful that we did it.
We did it.
We did it. And
it's interesting because
it's still out there. It's still out there in the world, and people still, it's still relevant. It's a timeless piece, which is nice. So I don't know if you guys can hear that. Sorry about the helicopters going on. There must be some.
Can't hear it at all.
Criminal running around in my neighborhood.
The funny thing to me now is it's been enough years, and I had kids later in life, so now my youngest is actually of an age that likes the show, and so we've got these new sort of school friends who the parents will find out, did you do kids television? And so I'll hand off a DVD, and the next encounter with those parents is like, they don't even know what to say to me. It's like,
Right.
I don't even, how is that you? Right?
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh,
and you know what? It's so funny. I gave somebody a DVD and they were like, thanks. We don't have a DVD player. I was like, what?
Yeah. The other funny thing that happens in our household is because of the show, and sort of because of my life in general, because I've met a lot of interesting people through my visual art too.
Right.
A number of times I have the television on and there's someone on TV that I know or who I worked with. And my kids have picked up on that. And there's a moment last year, or it must have been a couple years ago, when my youngest daughter was just that extra bit younger and just unaware, who she came in, I had the TV on, and she came in and it's like, hey, Dad, who do you know on this show?
That is so funny because Mark's nieces just came and stayed with us, and they kept on asking me, "Do you know that? You know, do you know this person?"
The most exciting is to me these days is Jessica Camacho.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
we connected with her actually.
Yeah, she might be on the show at some point.
That's awesome because we cast her in her first gig, and now she's.
Well, look at Nate. Nate works at Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
I mean, Nate's in development at Nickelodeon, and whenever I'm there, he's like, "This woman gave me my first job in children's television." And Adam Mellema, who's running a streaming network now in development, says the same thing.
No.
I got my start in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah.
What did Mary Jane say here?
Amazing all you're doing, Joel, pushing through obstacles and adding so much color along the way.
Oh, thanks. That's kind.
That's very kind. Well, I want to know, because we're running out of time, which is
totally.
We haven't even gotten to half of our questions yet. But I do want to ask this one. Yeah. You do have 2 daughters. You've talked about them.
Yep.
Do they exhibit signs of following in Dad's footsteps, or do they see a future in academia, following in their smarty pants mom's footsteps?
They're both wildly creative.
Are they?
My oldest daughter, Harper, is living up to her namesake, Harper Lee.
Yeah.
And her writing skills are off the charts.
Oh, yay.
Her perfect day is either reading, writing, or drawing. And then my younger daughter, Beatrix, named after Beatrix Potter, also has mad art skills, but probably I would see her into the more performance arts. Like, she's probably going to be the best musician of our family, and just has a dramatic flair and has great rhythm, like dancing. Like she's going to be one of those theater people.
Oh, God forbid.
I can just predict it. But
are you going to say to her, "You're a really good student. Shouldn't you get good grades? Should you become a doctor?"
Be a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah.
She's going to be singing theater songs. She's going to hear a sentence, Joel, and off she goes.
Both my kids can do half of Hamilton. I mean, as I think a lot of kids can these days.
Yeah.
They just break into Hamilton songs.
Rebecca.
Yeah, go ahead.
Josiah wants to work in production. Her son. I have a feeling it came from coming over. Yeah, you just never know how many lives you've touched along the way. I mean, especially for you, who've got, you have artwork all over the place. You've got the show. You used to be a musician or a vocalist. Do you feel the enormity of how much you've put out into the world?
I don't know about that, the enormity part of it, but there are. I get enough encouraging moments where you recognize the path you've taken that you just think of as your path because it's normal. It's normal for me to make stuff, and then I'll meet somebody and you'll have a conversation, especially with a younger person, and you realize that you're maybe the first full-time creative they've ever met, right? And that you've just given them a sense of possibility, right? That it's like, oh, you've been doing it how long? You can do this? And I won't lie, I often give them the "you're always hustling" talk. right? It's like I'm always applying for a job.
Yeah.
I'm always applying for a job, the next project, and that's exhausting. Like I try not to hide the hard parts of it. You know, the hard part of Come On Over was the business.
Yeah.
Like selling the freaking show, right, to broader networks. It's like that's hard, right?
It was really hard. But
the creative
hopefully
part,
hopefully new things in store. We'll see. We'll see what. But we have to go because Mark needs this room. When we move to Michigan, we're gonna have 2 different spots. Joel, seriously, we could talk for like 2 hours, which is amazing. I mean, just you're muted, Teresa. What did you do?
Oh, I've got that damn helicopter flying around. I know there's questions we haven't gotten to yet, and I love that after how many years, you know, of us, and I mean. You do a show like that, you are spending 24/7. I mean, there were days I saw way more of Joel and Patrick than I ever saw of Fred Stella. I mean, well, that's kind of the same today.
I was going to say,
because I'm in LA and he's in Michigan. But no, I mean, now I lost my train of thought.
You do stories tonight. That it's like it is amazing, right? That it's like. I would argue that that's the creative life, though, right? And that I would not choose a different path because it's interesting, right? Yeah. Like we didn't even get into this last year in COVID. It's like beginning of COVID, like many others, I got crushed. Like every project I was working got canceled, and you know, art isn't the first thing people have in their budget when the chaos begins. But you know what? It's like it's worth it. It's still all the heartache stuff and all the hard stuff is still worth it.
Okay, I have to go because Mark's walking into the room.
Patrick's getting the eye.
Patrick's getting the wrap.
Guys.
He's getting this.
Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Whoops. All right.
Hey, don't wait so quick.
Is that his ego right there? Okay.
No. I seriously have to go. So
Joel,
we love you.
The quick end. Thank you so much.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my God.
So sorry. We totally have to go.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Next month is artists, is writers. Join us next month.
Gotta go.